Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all for tuning in and spending some of your day with us today. My name is Kate Cottenbach. I am Manager of Membership Engagement for CMA on the membership team. As a trade association, we really dedicate ourselves to providing our members and our industry at large with the resources and the information needed to help better not only your professional lives, but your personal lives as well. I think it's probably safe to say that over the last 15 months or so, a large portion of our industry has been thinking and talking a lot about live events and about the return of touring and what concerts and what touring will look like once things are fully back into swing. So I'm grateful to have incredible partners like the Touring Career Workshop who can help bring us some of this information straight from the source to our members and to our industry, and certainly a very relevant and timely topic as we look into the summer and into the fall and see more and more tour announcements coming out. And the good news is that this isn't the only event that we're doing with the Touring Career Workshop. We have a whole host of events throughout the end of the year that I hope you'll be able to join us for. So keep an eye out for more information and invitations to all of our upcoming events. And information will be posted on our website as well on cmaworld.com. So with all that said, I'm ready to get this conversation started and excited to listen in to what our guests have to say. So I will pass it over to Erik.
Hey, everybody that's tuning in with us. Just want to welcome you to the first of the Touring Career Workshop and CMA webcasts. I'd like to thank Kate for joining us and letting us be part of this, and the CMAs for being part of this with them. We are going to have a question and answer opportunity. You can get your questions on the chat, and we'll get to those hopefully in a timely manner while we're on the topics. But anything you want to ask, feel free to chime in and we'll get to those. Quick disclaimer, this is just a conversation between four touring people. No binding information here. This is all based on today's knowledge. It's ever changing. Tomorrow, this whole conversation could take a totally different direction. So just wanted to let you know this, again, just a conversation between four touring people. I'm going to introduce our guests real quick and let them tell you about themselves. I'll start with Zito. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hey, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Touring Career Workshop, Erik, and the rest of my friends over there. Appreciate everything you guys are doing. 21-year production manager, currently gearing up to take Green Day out on what will be the first stadium tour since the pandemic started. So we are heading out very shortly, doing the Hell Mega Tour this year. Excited to be here, talk about everything we've been finding out from internally with our camp and kind of sharing some of that information with everybody, and excited to be getting back to work.
That's great. Congratulations on the tour going out, man. That's big news. Curt, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name's Curt Jenkins. I have been on the road since '03 in various positions, started in audio, done production management a little bit, and been in the tour managing world, probably for the past kind of 8 years. Lucky enough to have been on the road with Erik for the last 5.5 of those. So, and looking forward to, like Zito, getting back on the road this summer.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining us on this, Curt. Tony, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Tony Joachim, better known as T-Rock in the industry. Been a production manager, promoter rep for 17 years now. Started with an independent back in '04, Blue Deuce Entertainment. We merged with Live Nation in 2014, opened up an office in New Orleans in 2015, and actually shut the office down during this whole episode with COVID. So now we're back to the independent days, and I'm working for a company now called Doosan Music Group, or DMG. So back to doing the independent thing and looking forward to getting back to it as well.
Yeah, that's great. Congratulations on the new upstart. So the first question we're going to tackle, the first topic is, Tony, I'm going to start with you. Are fans ready to return to live music? Are they ready to come out to events and mass events?
In a nutshell, yes. I think they're more than ready for live events to return. I'm not sure how much you're seeing on your local level. We haven't seen much here, just because of the governor of Louisiana and the mayor of New Orleans just recently, in the past 2 or 3 weeks, lifted the mask mandate. So there haven't been many activities or events on a local basis here statewide. But most of the people I talk to, friends, family, acquaintances, they're ready for that engagement again. They're ready for live to return. I think Ticketmaster did put out they did an article last year. This was about 6 months ago, and it was 60% of the people that bought tickets to shows that were supposed to play out in 2020 are still holding on to those tickets. So that tells me people have been ready, and they're more than ready for live to return, for that energy and that interaction that live events have to offer. So I think absolutely, yes, more than ready.
Yeah, for sure. Zito, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
do you think it's genre specific, or do you think it's across the board?
I think what we're seeing here is that everybody wants to get back. I mean, on the Green Day tour, it was a reschedule from 2020. We had an 80% retention of tickets held over from last year to this year. There have been, through the entire process, consistent sales. People want to go. They're ready to go. We're close to selling out in a bunch of the markets. Even after the reschedule, we're opening up sight lines. They're hungry. They're eager. They're going to show up.
Gotcha. Curt, I know you and I have done some shows. Any other examples outside of what we've seen with Tony and Zito on the ticket sales? Any other examples you can think of that show people are ready to get out there and see music?
I mean, ticket sales have been strong. I think people are just ready to get out of their house. I think you see that in traffic is increased. People are doing things, and live entertainment is to celebrate. And I think people are now looking more to music and concerts as celebrations of just being past this, and ready to do it. I mean, we just saw it. Down at Billy Bob's in Fort Worth, we probably could have played, another week down there with shows. So, just echoing what they said, everybody's ready just to get out again.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like everybody is ready to get out and see some entertainment. They've been pent up in their houses for 15, 16 months and are ready to get out there. So, for those of you that tuned in a little late, don't forget we do have a chat room open. You can post any questions, and we'll get to them just as soon as we can and try to get your answers for you. Curt, the next topic is, do you think Nashville's leading the charge? It seems like Live Nation's had major tour announcements every week for about 6 or 7 weeks now, and I know AEG announced the Eric Church tour. So is Nashville kind of out on the forefront, or what do you think is going on there?
I think a little bit there. I think the biggest kicker that helps Nashville is, being just the region we're in. The Southeast is more of what was maybe, let's say, less affected or has been more open the whole time, and it's more of the country demographic, I think, too. So it's like, that's why it makes it easy for, the country artist and the Nashville artist to get out, and get going. There's so many festivals, amphitheaters, fairs, all of that stuff that country acts, are accustomed to doing, every year. I think it just, it's a little bit easier for us to get out there and do it. Also, country doesn't tend to have, there's only a few acts that have the massive scaled productions that take months and months of planning and the larger buildings, like the undertaking that Zito's got, I can't wait to hear about that, what he's trying to pull off so quickly. But whereas it's easier, like even from the Miranda world with us, we jump in 2 trucks and can go play a club, but then we could turn around the next week and play an arena show, so I think it's a little bit easier for us to, lead the charge. And also I think, just fans are ready, and I think so are the artists just as much. And a lot of them live here. So yeah, I'd say we're leading it right now.
Gotcha. Zito, obviously, Green Day is probably the biggest tour announcement stadium-wise that's come out. I know the Motley Crue, Def Leppard just pushed off to 2022. So do you think other acts are going to follow in that stadium pattern, or do you think you guys are going to be one of the few out there this year?
Yeah, what we're seeing is there's a couple of artists. I'm not going to say their names because I actually don't know the status of them being announced or released. I know of 1, 2, 3, 4 other stadium acts that are going to be doing shows this summer. Nothing at scale like we're doing, a full 20 tour stadium run. or 20 show stadium run. There are some more coming, but I think overall the size and scope of the shows will prevent most from having the appetite to take it on right now. To be quite honest, if we weren't a reschedule from 2020, I don't know that we would have chosen to go in this short of time. We were able to carry some things over that are helping set us up for success, but it's a new tour for all intents and purposes. It's new routing, it's a new show design. It's, we're starting from the ground up, but we were able to carry over a portion of our ticket sales, so it mitigated some of the risk for the artist in jumping on board for this year.
Gotcha. Tony, do you guys, I know you guys are just starting back up down there in New Orleans, but do you guys have anything major coming up, or are you guys just kind of just getting your feet on the ground and getting started?
Yeah, at the moment we have a few things in June, July, August. Most of what we have and most of the offers we have are for the fall, indoor at least. Most of the things that are I see summertime being outdoor primarily. I think outdoor is going to come back faster than indoor. But I think, as we get into the summer and into early fall, we're going to see arenas and large indoor venues and large indoor events start bouncing back a lot quicker than I expected. It seems like every day there's something new being announced. So.
Yeah, there's been an onslaught of announcements coming out, so that's great news that people are ready to get back out there and get to work. Zito, festivals versus tours. Which model works best in this climate right now?
Well, I actually want to tag on one thing you just said. I think that's pretty interesting. Is there are a ton of dates being announced, but I think that it's the bookers and the promoters are eager to do it. We need to be cautious, though. I'm really concerned about the support infrastructure being able to handle doing the amount of shows. Live Nation's already said they booked more for 22 than they did in 2019, and we were full on in 2019. So it's a great opportunity for people wanting to get in the industry to start working their way in now, and because it's going to be an onslaught next year. And so, not that my opinion matters, I've urged caution with how aggressively everybody's trying to move forward. We're trying to run a marathon without warming up, is what it feels like to me. But that's kind of where we're at. As far as festivals versus touring, I mean, the reality is the festival model is way more conducive for where we're at coming out of a pandemic. They have one location that they're working with, one municipality for any sort of COVID restrictions and that sort of thing. Typically, those types of festivals and events have a built-in infrastructure. They're used to doing it the same way. They kind of have the same layouts. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. On the touring side, it's extremely challenging for us moving forward in routing and working on the tour without knowing what we're walking into. So, we have brought on a whole team of COVID folks, director of COVID compliance that is handling our advanced portion of finding out what is being required, because you have city officials, you have state officials, you have nationwide guidelines, and they've got to extrapolate all that information for all of the shows we're doing, which may be different in San Francisco than it is in Los Angeles County. So it's not just statewide, I mean locally, and guiding us on how we're making decisions. And that information is changing so much. Essentially, we're moving forward with a tour in absence, counting on things opening. Right now, every place that we're wanting to go isn't 100% open. We don't actually have the ability to go at the capacity we're at. And so we're working off of those timelines. So it is very challenging on the touring side to sort of manage that whole thing. And I would encourage anybody looking at moving forward this year, if you're going to be touring, I think you need to have somebody dedicated to handling that. I think it's too much to put on production or tour management to try to stay on top of those local restrictions and game plans. You need to have somebody dedicated to it that speaks the language, that can stay on top of it and advise you, pull that information in, especially on the touring side. And if it's a one-off, that's a different situation. But so much is changing that you really need to have somebody that's dedicated to that type of information pull and guiding you in your decision making.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. That that's an added tour position really to keep up with the climate city to city. Kurt or Tony, anything to chime in on that?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Zito, what you thought of. I know I've been thinking about like moving forward. Let's get past COVID. You know, as far as like we always carry security on the road, we always carry those things. Do you think like a health and safety officer of some sort is going to come, you know, a standard across all tours? You know, because like you said, even from like say we go in and do clubs, who's the guy calling the club saying, "Hey, has it been cleaned right? You know, how has it been sanitized? Has it been done this? You know," and that's where I kind of wonder if moving down, does safety as well as, you know, health fall into that? We have a new position that we, you know, everywhere.
Well, I think that it's going to be a while till we go back to normal, and COVID isn't part of the conversation. That's just the reality. And even if things are opening up right now, most of these venues still have to supply a COVID plan and protocol to their local authorities. So they're thinking about it, and we need to be thinking about it. I feel like it's going to be 2 to 3 years before we're at some sort of normal operating procedure. You know, on Green Day, the only reason that we're moving forward as a tour is everybody on tour, and this is top to bottom, truck, bus drivers, every single person is required to be vaccinated. We are 100% requiring that for every person, every artist that is a part of our organization. And it's the only way that we have found that we can actually mitigate the risk for the artist. There's a huge financial obligation for a band that's going on the road right now, and they have to, you know, protect that investment. So I think that is going to be a huge part, and it comes down into then who's following up, who's managing that information, verifying that the crew's been done. There are some privacy things that need to be addressed and sharing some of that information. So funneling that through the right way, I think this is going to be here for a while. I really do.
Yeah, and it's
Go ahead, Tony.
It's just, you know, it's kind of the 9/11 analogy where, you know, after that we had all these new safety protocols, and it was strict for a while, but then some of those sort of have fallen off. But to this day, we're still implementing some of those protocols. And it's going to be the same situation with COVID for quite a while. Mm-hmm. You know, we're going to have some new safety and health protocols that we're going to have to address for every show and every market. Will some of them stick? Probably most of them will. And, you know, to what Zito and you were saying, Erik, I mean, we may need to put somebody, or I think Curt brought it up, they may need, you know, we may need a health or a safety head on the tour. Just like we do a security, you know, a security lead. So it could become something.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the long term for sure. I'm going to jump down to another question that ties into what we just talked about. Touring bubbles, you know, that's kind of the term that people are throwing out there is a backstage bubble for the artist to come into a clean, sanitized venue, but does that effectively work? Tony, I mean, how would locally they even implement that into a venue where there's a safe zone for the artist?
I mean, I think all you can really do is sanitize the space, do everything you possibly can to keep things clean throughout the day. Temperature checks, you know, if everybody needs to wear a mask for a time frame, you know, and getting back to what Zito spoke about regarding the vaccine. I mean, it could be something that becomes a mandate for everyone in the industry, just to give everybody that level of comfortability moving forward. There's going to be a lot falling back on the venues on that as far as expenditure when it comes to, you know, actually buying and investing in hand sanitizing stations and staffing and training. So there's a lot to it. There's a way to do it, but it's, you know, there's going to have to be some sort of a plan implemented, a general plan, it can't just be this venue's doing this venue's doing that. It has to be something that everybody sort of, addresses ahead of time as part of the advance now. And then you roll in and there's someone there that helps implement that plan for the day.
Right. Curt, do you think a bubble works with a touring staff when people, you have a front of house engineer and you have a lighting tech and video people that are out in the crowd and the masses? Does a touring bubble break down at that point, or is there a way to make that work?
I mean, the only way I think it makes it work is like Green Day's doing. It's like if everyone's vaccinated, based on what CDC has come out with recently, that's the only way I think to effectively try to protect the artist in that sense and everyone around it. Because if your team is, you're protecting yourself from anyone that you might come in contact with. Where it really runs a risk is, say, your front of house engineer isn't vaccinated and then is out there with all the people and brings it back, and there might be 2 or 3 others that aren't. What does it look like if a crew member comes down with it and half's vaccinated, half's not? Does everything shut down? Does everything stop? So I think for the bubble to be effective, the vaccine has to follow with it.
Yeah.
Right. Zito, last thing on this topic is, I kind of brought it up, but do you think that's protocol that falls on the tour to specify, or is it a local, or is it going to be different every day when you walk into different venues?
There's an interesting undercurrent that's happening right now within the industry about protocols, who mandates them, and how it's being implemented. And the bottom line is that it boils down to economics. Who's going to pay for it, right? And there's sort of a battle between the promoter side and the touring side. And it's a bit of a game of chicken, in the sense that if it is by the promoter pushing for it, whether it's a national promoter pushing it across all their shows or a regional promoter, then they are therefore accepting the responsibility of cost associated with that. These are our protocols. This is what we're doing. If the tour has a different opinion or guidance that they're going off of on what they're implementing, they're essentially saying, going down this road of, well, we're insisting this, and then the question is who's paying for it, if it becomes more in depth than potentially what the locals have. So what we're kind of seeing is the touring side say, well, we want all these things to protect us. We're the ones that have to move from city to city. And the promoters looking at it saying, well, your requirements are through the roof. We're not going to pay for it. So I don't know where that's going to land. It will probably be a compromise between the promoters as a whole and the artists to have some sort of basic guideline that's followed. But ultimately, it is going to come down to the comfort of the tour, and each one's going to be different. It's going to go from the artist and management all the way through the organization and what they feel comfortable with. Ultimately, you're at the highest risk moving from city to city, going through all these different locations, and you have to, as with any risk assessment, look at the entire picture and identify those points of risk and how do we protect ourselves and assess it. And going back to the bubble that Curt said, we went down the road of doing the bubble thing, and can it work? And ultimately it doesn't work. There's too many points of contact to do a show interfacing with the locals there's too many variables. What happens if somebody gets sick and then they have to quarantine? It's your front of house guy. Who's going to mix the next show if you're moving on to the next city? Ultimately, the only safe way to protect the artist and protect the tour is to be vaccinated. And an artist would have to be willing to accept that financial liability. Hey, we're out on the road. We're in a bubble, just like you said. One of our lighting guys got sick. He now has to quarantine. He's, got COVID because he interfaced with a local stagehand and ended up passing it on. Now that entire bus is at risk. there's a huge amount of financial liability for the artist, and there's no way to protect themselves other than vaccination. And I do see a note here about the pushback. Ultimately, this is a conversation, pushback with folks potentially not wanting to get vaccinated. Everybody has to make their own decision. What we've said within our tour is that if you want to be on tour with this artist, it's a requirement. There may be artists that don't have as much liability, don't have as much risk, that are willing to allow non-vaccinated folks to be on tour with them. That is their prerogative. But I think for any large-scale major market tours, it's 100% going to be a requirement, the same way we go to South America. And that's just what you're going to see. There's plenty of places where you can work and you don't have to get the vaccine, but the large-scale stuff, it is going to 100% be a requirement.
Gotcha. All right. Let's move on to the next topic. Tony, this one's for you to start off with, but talking about local restrictions and tour routings. As you guys start to put tours together, how do you route, like for especially for the national country music industry, Thursday, Friday, Saturday weekend, routing through areas that are not open yet? Does that mean it's going to be a Wednesday, Friday, Sunday weekend show now, where you're routing through different states and having longer overnight travel? Do you think that it's going to be harder to route tours effectively and efficiently?
I don't think so. I think you stick to those areas and those regions that are routable. Most of the South is rocking and rolling at the moment. Texas and Mississippi and I think Florida were some of the first states to actually reopen. Louisiana is open now. I think Alabama is. Most of the South in the southeastern region is wide open. So, there are enough markets within that particular region alone to be able to do a 15 to 20 date run and pick your weekends. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. And I think, by July and in August, we're going to start seeing a lot more states reopening, markets reopening. I think it'll be 75 to 100% by then, because the vaccine's becoming more readily available. People are becoming more comfortable moving around and doing things. So I don't see that being an issue.
Gotcha. Do you think that being the South being the most open is, obviously you were saying, there's enough markets down here, but is that going to inundate the South half of the country with shows? And then are consumers going to have to pick and choose even more based on the number of shows coming through the open South versus the tighter closed North still?
Yeah, that could be an issue. It could be an influx of events. I think that's what's going to really happen. But I think people are extremely excited about live events coming back and returning. So, I have, like I said earlier, I haven't seen much on the local level, but, as far as some of the guys I know that have been through Texas, Mississippi, and Florida, bands that normally draw 15 to 2,000 people or 1,500 to 2,000 people are doing 5,000, 6,000 people. People are just coming out of the woodwork because they're ready to experience live events again. So that concentration in one market and that amount of volume could potentially be an issue, but I think things are changing pretty rapidly. Every day there's something new, another market's opening up, or so I don't think there's enough really on the books at the moment from now through July or August, except for a lot of outdoor activities, festivals, and a few other smaller tours that are going out for small arenas. I don't think much is really happening, or there's not much of a focus, especially for us, until well into the fall and into 2022, which I think is when everything's going to be pretty much wide open.
Gotcha.
Kurt, I could see. I was gonna say I could see by the end of 22, maybe it's starting to level out a little. Because looking at history right now is like, when have we hit the pause button on all live music and live events, in our history. So like you've got that coming right now. I think for a year solid, it will be, the demand will be extremely high before it does level out again with everything opening up. And I think there will be a leveling out, but it's just everything ebbs and flows anyway. Right now, there's just going to be a really, really strong demand, of people wanting to go. And then I think it will, at some point, if it starts getting some of these markets of 22 where you're doing shows 5 and 6 nights a week, you'll start to see it become saturated. But I think it's going to be a bit before we get there.
Gotcha. Zito, you're obviously taking one of the bigger tours out this summer, but do you think that production is going to be scaled down across the board beyond the stadium size acts? Do you think that everybody's going to try to scale down and go smaller this year?
I think they would be smart to. I think the reality, one of the things that I've been preaching to our team as we move this tour forward is that I forbid the use of the term, we've done it before, right? We've never come out of a pandemic in our lifetime before. And so everything has to have a fresh set of eyes. And we will do ourselves justice by taking a slower, more methodical approach, less aggressive routing, scaling our production back, putting less responsibility on the locals, just trying to do things that are achievable. It's as a crew, if you think about when you're doing a tour and your first loadout takes 4 hours, and then the second one you wheel off an hour, you got it to 3, and then by your 6th or 7th loadout, you got it down to 90 minutes and you're rocking, right? And that's when you're used to touring. Well, we're about to come in without having done shows for many people almost 2 years. And we're going to go back to work. And we can't expect that people are going to work the same way. The muscle memory isn't there. Our endurance isn't there. I mean, on tour, we can put in 18 or 20-hour days with all the time. And when was the last time you had to do that, in the last year? So I think we need to do that. We need to be smart about it, to be scaled back, to ask for less from the locals and really take a more methodical approach. It's just going to be slower, and we need to adjust for that. And I think anybody that isn't adjusting for that is ignorant to the climate that we're coming back to doing shows.
Curt, your thoughts on that? Oh, sorry, Tony.
No, I was just saying, I think the fan base is going to be perfectly fine with any scale backs. They're just going to be excited to be out there. It's not even going to matter to them. They just want to be there and be in that number, So I think safety behind the scenes and what we're talking about now is most important. And for the concert goers too. I mean, obviously there's going to be protocols at the gates, and I'm sure there are going to be a lot of mandates, from market to market, but scaling back is certainly not going to be a bad thing, in my opinion.
And I think from a financial standpoint as well. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that concerts are companies. The artist is a company, and they've been sitting idle, some 2 years, some a year without a paycheck. So, I mean, they have to be fiscally responsible as well. So I think you will see from that standpoint, things just being smaller, as well.
Yeah, for sure. Curt, is there a tour size that ultimately benefits in this situation? I know you and I have had several conversations about if the floodgates open and all the big acts went out, that the promoters are going to put people that can sell seats in the venues first, and that there's a lot of clubs and theater sized venues for smaller acts, and the middle acts would get shut out. But as capacities are coming back in reduced numbers, does it benefit the middle size acts, or what genre and what size act benefits from this at this given time?
I think like you've said, we've talked about it a bunch. I think it's currently changing. Early on, when it was really tight, the acts that were a bus and trailer, able to go into the smaller places, and that was their, audience size, did great. But now that things are starting to, put up, I think you're going to see more avenues for stay tighter. I think those big ticket artists, the big moneymakers for the Live Nations, the AEGs, would be the ones that would benefit. You would lose the middle and keep the smaller bus and trailers. But right now, if it continues to open at the speed it is, I think we might, at least in the country world, start to see that middle slot become a coveted position again, where, we'd seen a trend of somebody hits one hit and all of a sudden they're going to do arenas by themselves. I think you're going to start to see that middle act thrive, be able to be, good tour packages going out, and then playing some bigger clubs and theaters on their own elsewhere. So I think it's, if it continues to open, I think it's going to be good for everybody. And our stance where we are with Miranda, we're sitting at 2 trucks right now, and can go anywhere. Put us in a club, we'll go in a club one day. You want to put us in an arena, the next day we'll go there, so it's like, for us, we're extremely flexible, where some of the bigger acts can't be flexible to go down. So I think it's, it's an ever changing, landscape daily here.
Sure. Do you guys think, Curt, you just touched on it, where, tour packages are going to be a big deal now, putting a package together. And do you guys think this is a reset of the industry as far as the scale of where some acts were? Are there going to be acts that take steps back? Is it going to be a reset where, like Curt said, where somebody has 1 or 2 hits and all of a sudden they're an arena headliner? Is this a reset to kind of get things back on a level playing field across the board?
Who wants to take that?
Nobody wants to take that one? That's fair. I'm just curious.
I would hope so. I mean, I think things kind of got crazy for a little bit there with, the 24 trucks rolling into an arena. But that's, it wasn't my call. I just, try to make it happen on a local level. But I hope this gets everybody back to the drawing board and say, okay, what's really most important here? Is it all the bells and whistles, or is it, the act and just putting on a good show? And I think you can do that without 24 trucks in an arena.
Right. Is it about the music again?
Right.
Are we back to where it's about the music and the artist and not the flash and flicker of the show? So I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last question I've got, and we kind of bounced around a little bit on this earlier, but Zito, you had brought up the touring personnel and the workload and things like that were out of practice. But I know, obviously, going out on the tour you're going out on, you've probably already seen some of this. But are people returning to our industry on the local and touring side of things? Are people? Did they find other careers and have they moved on, or are we going to have a shortage of local union people? Or what are we going to see out there?
Let me separate those into 2 different things. So on the touring side, with road crew, 100%, we've seen people that have gotten off the road. I know on my tour alone, there are 4 or 5 people that were in key positions on the tour that are not returning, whether that's temporarily or long term. I think there is being first to market brings its own challenges. And so we are seeing some people say, well, I want to, but I need to make sure I can leave this stable thing that I found. We were off for long enough that it wasn't like our normal take 3-month break in between tours and you float off savings. People had to find other things to make a living off of. And so what I've seen is that the middle tier guys that are the meat and potatoes of the tour, the skilled positions, front of house and automation guys and lighting guys, a lot of these guys are veterans. They've been around 10 years. They got families. They had to go find something else. They had to get a full-time thing. And those are the positions that I'm hurting to find. There's a plethora of guys that are guys and gals that are newer to the industry that over the last year have found ways to, living with 3 friends and sharing a house, their expenses are low and they're ready to go. They were able to make it through with flying colors. So yes, there is a shortage of crew, and there's a lot of opportunities for people to get into it now that wouldn't be. And speaking again on the vaccination thing, some people are not going to be okay with that, and so they opt to pass on doing a tour that may require that. So it is causing a shortage of crew. Right now, it's manageable for me because I'm not competing against a lot of other acts. But come 22, it is going, lock your crew in now. I'm trying to lock in crew for tours next year because it's going to be tough. On the local side, stagehands is an absolute disaster right now. There's no other way around it. The reality is that, the folks that do local stagehand work, the only way they can make their living is by volume. They have to be doing a bunch of shows a week, and there hasn't been that to keep them around. IATSE nationally is operating at about less than 30% of their total membership compared to 2019. So it's going to be an issue. You have to make adjustments. We are going to be able to, they're going to fill the calls mostly, but it's going to be unskilled labor. It's going to be anybody bodies that can put it in, or you might see people going from market to market. We see that a lot now where we have a show in Miami and Jacksonville, and they're going to bring a lot of the crew there because that's the only way they can fulfill it. That will change over the next year as the volume of work goes up and they can attract that labor pool again to come back to your non-union companies like Rhino and Crew One, and of course the IATSE nationally. But right now, as it stands, it's a absolute disaster, and you have to make accommodations for it. Scale your production back, give yourself more time to do your load-ins, do a load-in day if you can afford to do it. You have to make the adjustments on it and be flexible. We're carrying extra crew. I've staffed my tour so that I have extra bodies on every single department. So if we are short on labor because we're doing stadiums, the big thing for me in doing stadiums is it's a long ways from the truck to the stage. And the build's happening on the stage and the trucks are a mile away. And you got to have bodies. The only way to win is you got to have gear moving from the trucks to the stage constantly. So you can't pull people off that. So if you're short, they're short for the guys working on the stage doing the build. And so we've buffered a bunch of extra guys that we're touring with to make sure that they can execute their game plan. And that's just kind of one of the ways that we're handling that specific concern.
Gotcha. Curt or Tony, anything to add on that topic?
I guess one question. Zito said, I agree with carrying the extra crew. Has there been any discussion that if the labor pool isn't there, that any of that extra crew cost that normally would be a show expense become a show expense in that kind of world? Or is it still just kind of the art, you're just doing what needs to protect the artist at this point? Or is that too far down, maybe down the road later?
No, I think that's twofold. So the question has been, yes, we are taking that on as a protection of our investment. We have a lot of money at stake here. And so for us, we've made the decision to build into our budget the extra staffing to protect that. The question wouldn't necessarily be about putting that on the locals, but the question does come into the extra expense of, IATSE is fulfilling the calls. They're fulfilling the calls, but they're pulling from 5 or 6 markets to do it. And so the real question comes down to on the burden of expense for moving all of this labor around the country to fill these calls on the bigger shows, and who's liable for that, and where is that expense picked up? And those are real numbers that you have to look into the structure of the deal. Yeah. Luckily, that will happen above most of us, but it's something we're aware of, and let the people that strike the deals work that stuff out. But it's a very real conversation.
Yeah, the shortage in labor is definitely real. We're seeing that here statewide for sure. I mean, as a company we use here, Rhino Staging, and they, at one point there would be a stadium show going on in New Orleans, an arena show in Lafayette, and another arena show in Bossier City, all within the same 2 or 3 days, and they could fill the call. And they're having a hard time finding 6 people to work this show coming up in June, which is crazy. They lost 5 or 6 of their head riggers. So it's definitely an issue. And another thing too, next year, 2022, they said to expect, 12 months worth of touring slammed into a 6-month time frame. So not only to Zito's point, locking in your labor and your crew guys now, but you have to lock in your vendors too. What about resources? What about sound and lighting and video, everything production, trucks, buses, drivers? That's it's going to be challenging.
Yeah, I think Zito's spot on saying lock in your 2022 production and labor now, because if you wait until 2022 to do it, you're going to be out in the cold.
That's right.
We've just got a few minutes left. If anybody's got any questions they want to get in on the chat, shoot those into us. Guys, I'm gonna. This wasn't on the topics we're going to talk about, but we did get one question in. Obviously, we've all been sitting at home for 15, 16 months now. What are you looking most forward to about getting back on the road or back to work, Tony? Curt, you want to lead with that one?
Yeah. Honestly, the travel and the camaraderie, the road. I think we would all agree here. There's a family that comes on you have your road family. We've used that term, and there's a lot of family that we haven't gotten to see over the last year to 2 years. So I think that's the biggest thing for me is getting to get back out there and see like T-Rock. We would see him every, once or twice a year if we came through, all those promoter reps, all the venue people just, have become friends over our career. That's the biggest thing for me that I've missed is the people doing it. What I'm going to miss from being, is I got a 3-year-old at home that I've gotten to spend every day with. That'll be the biggest change for me. But it's that's what I'll miss from home. But getting to see the people is who I'm missing.
Yeah, Zito, what about you?
I mean, it's exactly that. I look forward to seeing my my road family, both my touring road family and also the locals we build relationships with. I look forward to getting off the bus and hugging my friends I haven't been able to do that with in a long time. I'm a people person and I miss those relationships. I miss being on the bus at the end of the night after a long day and watching some stupid TV show and drinking a beer and laughing with my friends and recapping the craziness that we just went through. Miss traveling. I went from traveling a couple 100,000 miles a year, flying a couple 100,000 miles a year to I flew once in 2019, the first time in 20 years. It was crazy. So I miss it all. Bring it. Let's go. Let's get back to it. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Feel the same. It's all about the camaraderie. It's the stage managers and the tour managers and all the familiar faces that'll roll through on any given show day, and the venue people, just everybody involved, everybody behind the scenes, from band guys to crew guys to venue guys and girls. It's just that interaction it's been missed. So it'd be good to get back to it. Maybe and then again, you have every day for the last 16 months. Or 14 months now, I believe, to do whatever you want, whenever you want. So that's going to go away. So get back to, missing birthday parties and weddings and all that good stuff when duty calls. But I'm ready for it. It's a good break for everybody.
The big term this year was pivot. Everybody had to pivot this year. So we'll see who pivots back into the industry and gets back on tour. But yeah, agreed with all you guys, man. It's really getting out there and seeing the people that you've come to love over the years and getting to see those faces again that has been a long year and a half to not get to do that. But at the same time, the silver lining is we all got to spend time at home, and that was probably something we all needed to do in our own personal lives too, is spend a little time at home and get reacquainted with our daily lives too. So I think that about wraps us up. I want to thank Kate and the CMAs for having the Touring Career Workshop do this series with you guys. Curt, T-Rock, and Zito, thank you guys for volunteering your time. We did just get a question, so let's see if we can hit this real quick. How will live stream play a part in touring in the future? Will artists offer both, or do you think that live streams will go by the wayside? Zito thinks they go by the wayside.
Boo! Takes everything awesome about what we've been doing away. Get rid of it. I don't want to see a live stream again. It takes the magic out of it.
It's all about live, man. It's all about the entertainment. It's all about being there. It's the vibe. It's the energy. It's the interaction.
You nailed it. The one thing that has not been replicated over these live streams, there is a palpable energy that is in a live event, that it's a real thing. You can feel it in the air. That'll never be replicated, and that is why our industry will always be needed. It is a real thing.
Yeah. I think what the live stream world has done is open the door for a new way of possibly meet and greets or VIP experience or something to that nature, of getting access to the artist, in a safer manner or more accessible way. Because, of that, I think that's where that could potentially go. I think it also helps, like with marketing, all the TV shows, all of the other stuff. It makes it easier to cater to those. I think that's where it's better served, to agree with Zito and everybody else. You can't, that feeling you get being in a show. I mean, what I miss about the road, walking in, it's a clean room, like spotless. Into the night, I love seeing how dirty it is and the trash and everything on the floor, going, look at what we just pulled off and how many people had an amazing time tonight. Like that's the feeling working behind the scenes that I really miss.
Yeah.
Erik, that's spoken like a tour manager, isn't it? That's not pushing cases across the floor strewn with beer and cups.
That's right. That doesn't have to worry about it. He's walking out the back door with the artist and leaving. For sure. We got just a few minutes left. Any questions? Get them on the chat, and we'll try to wrap those up into the conversation here. But I think to answer Calvin's question about the live streams, I think that it was a great thing to fill the gaps with, but I just don't think you can replicate a live event. Like you guys all said, it's the energy, it's the whole thing coming together, and the people and the energy in the crowd. And I think the artists feed off that. I know a lot of artists did the live streams for the fan clubs and pay-per-views and things like that, but it's not the same sitting at home on your couch watching Metallica as it is being in the front row, just having your face ripped off by the music. It's a totally different beast. But I agree with Curt that there are ways to integrate the live streams into and keep them in the industry, but I don't think it's ever going to replace live music. I don't think the artists would. I know a lot of artists just wouldn't do live streams. They're like, I don't want to play to an empty room. It's not the same, and I can't get up there and perform for nobody and pretend there's an audience there while I'm playing to somebody at home. It's just not the same. So, but well, it looks like our time's about up. We appreciate everybody for joining us. Thank you all for tuning in. We hope this conversation at least entertains you for an hour. Again, Curt, T-Rock, Zito, thank you guys. Thanks for everybody at the Touring Career Workshop for helping put this together for us.
Absolutely.
And we will, Tony, hopefully see you in New Orleans soon. Zito, good luck on the stadium tour. Curt, I'll see you soon.
All right.